Here's the thing. I wouldn't exactly call myself a runner. Yes, I know the common trope from a lot of trainers. Anyone who slips on sneakers and starts putting one foot in front of the other is a runner. I agree with that sentiment wholeheartedly, but if you're like me this time last year, just getting into running, no idea where to even begin, maybe you've run a few miles at a time or still run walking, you're just kind of feeling less than. And that feeling sometimes never goes away. Even now, after running the New York City Marathon last November, I'll do physical activity of some kind and just think to myself, how did I do that exactly? How did my body pull that off? The point I'm making is, yes, you're on the first leg of your journey and it looks really, really daunting. Your goal of running 26.2 miles in any other time in human history would have absolutely made you drop dead. The namesake included, but here you are, likely paying somebody so that you could do it with a little pomp and circumstance. I know that feeling all too well. I know it's unthinkable now, but do not discount yourself. You're challenging your body to take on this feat. You know what that means? You are a runner. So from one runner in denial to another, I wanted to share 8 tips to get you started on your journey to the marathon, and how to make sure that journey lasts until Central Park, Boylston Street, or wherever you decide your finish line will be. Tip number 1 feels like a given, but I cannot stress this enough. Plan your entire training block in advance. It's incredibly easy to get to week 3, week 4, burnt out from running aimlessly and feeling like Daniel's son cleaning the toilet and just asking yourself, what exactly is the point of all this? So take the time right now to strategize your training step by step. Count how many weeks you have left before the marathon and find the best place to put every week between now and then in one spot. It could be a calendar planner, could be a notebook, app on your phone. I'm a sucker for a good Excel sheet, so I built a template for myself. If that's your style, there's plenty of templates that you can find on Etsy or somewhere else to get you set up, whatever works best for you. So how do you fill out this training planner? Well, based on my experience filling this out as a first timer, there's a few key points that you can start off on. Starting with tip number 2, add races for throughout your training block. There are 5Ks and 10Ks and everything in between, quite literally in every town in America throughout the year. Charity fun runs to the big city races that run parallel with big city marathons. These provide you with opportunities to run with others and get used to the environment for your marathon, especially if you're not used to that kind of racing environment before. And there are plenty of resources out there that you can look for races exactly at the time frame that matches up with your training progression. You can use databases where you can look up where you live or places you want to visit throughout the year and get every single race going on in the country at that moment. I'll leave a link in the description for one of the websites that I used in my training block. Now, if you're like me leading up to New York and this is your first block of anything longer than a 5K, you want to set up your training into 4 phases: the 5K races, the 10K races, the half marathons, and eventually your goal marathon. In each phase, you're pretending the end goal is the upcoming distance, not the marathon further down the road. And since you're new to the sport, the biggest thing you can do to help yourself is putting in the miles and getting your body used to the process. I say that not as a fitness expert, but as someone who really learned the hard way, because you're so tempted to want to make a race pace out of every single run that you do, but at the end of the day, you really shouldn't be doing your race pace more than about 25 to 30% of your runs, as I've heard. So even though your marathon is maybe 6, 8, 10 months away, you have periodic checkpoints throughout the process that allow you to keep yourself honest, which leads me to your next step in planning the training block and tip number 3. Have the patience to start from scratch. Your body has to adjust to the physical stress of pounding on pavement, dirt, or track, sometimes hours at a time. Naturally, especially if you're like me and was genetically born to be a linebacker, there's going to be some serious pain if you don't tread carefully. Hip soreness, leg cramps, feet feeling messed up if you have the wrong sneakers, and the one that makes me shudder to this day, shin splints. If you're new to long distance running overall, do not be afraid of starting at the beginning, doing a mile run or a mile worth of sprints if that's where you end up feeling your most comfortable, because it'll allow you to learn proper running form, learn how to be quick, and set a better baseline for you when you get into the longer distances. The general rule of thumb in a training block is to run 10% more miles every week, each week, in order to prevent injuring yourself. But just listen to your body first. If you feel like you need to let off the gas, do it, because if you don't, that's your body telling you that it's on the edge, and you're going to regret it when that pulls you on the sidelines for longer than you want to. You're only cheating yourself, really. Now, you may have filled out this running plan and thought, okay, this is cool and all, but how do I give myself the time to actually get all of this running done? That's where you find tip number 4. Add running to your routine. Don't force running into your routine. Many studies out there have tried to look for the perfect scenario: morning versus evening runners, running in daylight, nighttime, road, trail, track, whatever. But as a first timer, the hardest part of getting into running is actually finding the time to do it in your schedule at all, never mind a certain time of day or place. That's especially the case in a marathon training block where you really need to be doing something 4, 5, maybe 6 times a week. So find the easiest ways to embed training into your schedule and lifestyle, rather than trying to force yourself into being an early morning runner or a late night runner. Find the times in your week that work best for you. Now, I can make a video in the future on how to fill this training block out entirely. Leave a comment, hit that subscribe button if that's something you'd like to see. But while the first 4 tips are planning your training, the last 4 tips are for during your training block, things that every newbie, including myself, always forget and end up paying for it. I know I've got at least 6.31 reasons to remind myself of these that may in fact haunt me until I decide to muster up the courage to do a second marathon. No big deal. Tip number 5. Yes, you need to stretch, and not just basic lunges or pikes or the run-of-the-mill stuff either. No matter your proficiency, your body needs to be able to brace itself for the type of activity it's about to do, because it's hard, and not doing it will cause serious avoidable injuries that you do not want to deal with when you're running on the clock like this. I'm not a stretching expert, so there's a lot of YouTube videos and other videos elsewhere showing the best stretches to do before a run, after run, so have a look, see what you can find, because there's plenty out there. My personal favorite, which is something that I really should have done but never did, stretching on your rest days, because even though you're not doing anything, you're still giving yourself the opportunity to stiffen up and kind of taking a step back after 2 steps forward. So get a basic foam roller, get bands, just do it. You'll thank yourself later. Tip number 6 is another element to make sure that's in your program as well: cross training. Yes, I know this sounds like every unbearable Instagram account that's like, go to the gym, brother. But this quite literally is one of the biggest regrets throughout my first training block. I did maybe once a month going to the gym doing workouts that weren't running related, but they're a key portion of creating your fittest, most well-rounded self and building the strength for every muscle so that when it's at the 18th or 20th mile and you hit that wall and you're looking at the 10K ahead of you thinking, man, I'm crazy for doing this, don't know if I can actually finish, that's when the instincts come in. And you're really gonna need that when the time comes. One more element that I missed a lot of that you should remember, and is tip number 7, don't be afraid of sprints. A lot is said about building your body up for endurance when you're training for a marathon, but not enough is said at the beginning about your muscles building up. And as I said, getting the miles in is important, but where your starting point is, you might not be able to crack that 6-hour window that a lot of marathons have, where if you don't finish in 6 hours, they're just not gonna count your time. So you'll need to learn how to turn on the jets. Or if you do New York, they don't have that cap, but you know, it's another thing I didn't do enough of, and probably another reason why I couldn't crack the 6 hours myself. So you've got all these things to remember, all of these different elements that you gotta put in. There's one very important tip number 8 that you gotta remind yourself, above all else, you gotta have fun. Let's be honest, all of this training you'll be doing, it's gonna take a lot of time and a lot of energy. But take a step back and think about the thing you're doing. You're attempting to do something that an estimated 0.17% of the world's population has completed. I've seen as high as maybe 1% before. The fact that your body is capable of going for this should be celebrated. Even if you don't get it done the first time, be proud of your body for even being close to pulling this off. Even if you have the off days, to be inspired to go for it. Not a lot of people can stand up and say they did that. You did. You should pat yourself on the back for it. So find the ways to make that time moments that you enjoy. Put together a playlist that makes you feel excited, upbeat, your best self. Maybe take it as the time to mentally coast with meditative music or podcasts. Mix things up every once in a while with where you run so you get to see all kinds of views you otherwise never would have thought of. And try connecting with other runners locally or through different groups so you have people to build that community around you to push yourself and others forward through something that is really grueling at times. In fact, that's our conversation this week. What are the things that are keeping you motivated when you run? Leave it in the comments below, and if you're looking for some more motivation, you could sign up for most major marathons with no running experience. I got a video on how I did that with New York, and it's relatively transferable to the other 5.